Right, can you still hear me? Fucking hell. So hopefully, I don't want you to get crushed. Okay, so yeah, the idea of these is a Q&A. Fucking hell, I'm repeating myself again. I do feel like a school mistress now. I don't know if right. Are you all listening? Are you focusing? If not, have 10 lines. If only I was a switch, it would work, but I'm not. Totally submissive, so that doesn't work, does it, in any way? You lead the content of these workshops. The idea is that you ask. It can be anything to do with mental health, with communication, with being polyamorous, with being kinky. It can be about genetics and epigenetics of us. It can be about the psychology of us. You name it, I know the answer. Of course I don't know every fucking answer. That's a bit of a joke, because I don't. But the idea is that someone in the room might as well. So it's just lead is all. So, who would like to start with a question that you have, that you've never had answered about anything that we do? And I'll tell you what normally happens is next to nobody puts their hand up at first. Everyone says, I'm not asking a fucking question. I don't want to look like the wanker. I'll come back to you with that. I said that at the same time. I know, sorry about that. And the problem is as well that then everyone has a question towards the end and then it's a bit of a nightmare. So it all gets really busy. And then people try and grab me afterwards, which you're allowed to do as well. Well, actually, it depends on what you look like and if I feel attracted to you. Maybe then. But anyway, fire away with a question.
No, didn't want you to have a room of blankness. I was going to say, what? You said genetics and epigenetics?
Epigenetics. Who knows what epigenetics are? Because if not, I can lie. So, what can I ask? What's your understanding? Like, let's start with you. You put your hand up. What's your?
My understanding of it is like changes in our genetics that happen as a result of our experiences.
Yeah. So changes in the way we read our genes because of experience. But you put your hand up as well. Is that the way you would describe it?
Yeah, so you might have a genetic disposition to something, but it may not get triggered until certain environmental factors come together and then it gets expressed. So if everyone in your family has anxiety, you might be slightly genetically prone to it, but you may not have it.
So it depends on environment and experience, but so really what it is, the way I describe it is if my great-great-great-grandmother had some kind of experience in her life, what she did is she then created a different form of protein. That protein wrapped itself around her DNA structure, not quite, this isn't absolute, fuck me, but it's just the basics. And then that message is then sent through in that DNA coding to all the next generations, and it impacts how you read the genetics. So when you've got like a genome, when you've got your book of genetics, it's like some bits are Tipp-X'd out and some bits aren't, and then your environment and other things, because their environment influenced them, means that impacted you. And the biggest piece of research that really smacked this one was I talk about this quite a lot, so I'm really sorry if you've seen me a lot, so I apologise, because I'm repeating the same thing. But the biggest piece of research that really changed this one was Rachel Yehuda's after 9/11. So she was working with survivors of the Holocaust, and she was like, why are the next set of people, the next generations, why are they the way that they are? She understood that any survivors would maybe be frightened of getting on a train or seeing someone in a uniform or having extra food in their bag. She got that, but then why the next generations? Is it because the family spoke about it? Is it because they heard the horror stories? And actually, she was working with a guy in Edinburgh, at Edinburgh University, and actually what we know is that it then becomes genetic. So after 9/11, she asked women to come forward, as in pregnant women at any state of their pregnancy, to come forward so she could test this theory. Because what they tested before was that a lot of these children are being born in a very high stress level that is so stressful. Do you know what happens when you're highly stressed? There's a certain drug in your body called cortisol, which rises up and goes, it's okay, but it can't keep doing that because it sounds lovely, but it's a fucking twat and it'll kill you if there's too much of it inside you. Anyone here really old like me need injections in their bad shoulder or their hips or something, or you've heard of that, like with cortisone and cortisone, but you can only have so much a year. Now, I'm not saying it's exactly the same, it's not, but you can only have so much a year because it fucks you up and it will eventually give you a heart attack. So while it calms, it causes you a lot of danger if it's used long term. So people who have chronic PTSD or are really highly stressed, actually you would expect their levels of cortisol to be high. But actually what they often are is below standard and below normal, because you can't keep producing it. So then what she did is she asked all these mums to come forward at any stage of their pregnancy, and they tested the babies. How many babies were born with a below average cortisol level, which shows their whole epigenetic system was on fire and they weren't okay? What would you say the percentage was of the babies that were born? 80%? 100%, she's right. 100% of the babies were born already in stress, which is fucking mad if you think about it, isn't it? So, and I've often wanted to do a PhD on the transgenerational epigenetic scripting of sexually submissive women. I'm really curious. I don't want to fucking write it, I just want to read it because it sounds so good. And Dr. Deb of Kink is quite cool, isn't it, you know? What did you do it on? Me. Why am I the way I am? And it's really interesting, because is it really all my choice that I am who I am? Or is it someone from, and we can go back 20, 30, 40, 50 generations. This isn't last generation, this isn't the generation before. They did a test on mice. I'm sorry about animal testing, I'm not apologising for somebody else, but they did a test on mice where they exposed them to pain at the same time to exposing them to cherry blossom. And then they made the mice pregnant, then they separated them from the baby mice, poor mice, but these baby mice still had the same response as their parents to the smell of cherry blossom, which was one of a state of panic. And they tested it through 13 generations. And it's the same for you and I. So like, you can also, I don't know if you've ever seen it, where you've seen a couple have a baby that's a completely different colour to their parents, very, very different to them. And the immediate thing is, well, you fucking cheated. Actually, maybe not, because 20 or 30 generations ago, this is how these things come forward. And actually, if you look at all of us, eventually, we will all be born, the more we mix and grow, we'll all be born with kind of like a light brown coffee coloured type skin with dark brown eyes. It will be really unusual to have blue eyes, green eyes, or hazel eyes, and it'll be really unusual to have blonde hair or red hair, because those are dominant. Brown is dominant by far. So, you know, if you meet a racist, just tell them that. Mate, you're on your way out. No, because that's the truth. That's the truth. That's where they're going. And recessive genes, recessive genes are interesting. I have blue eyes. All 4 of my daughters have blue eyes. My mum and dad do not. My ex-husband does not, but my grandmother did. And I remember having an argument with a teacher once years ago saying to me, well, they can't all be his then. I'm like, they fucking are. Do you want to do the blood test? I said, what do you teach even? Like, surely you must teach biology and know this shit. And he's like, no, I teach English as a foreign language. I was like, oh, fuck off. And actually, it can come into us as well. Your kink could be fuck all to do with you, potentially, for all we know. It could be something that your great-great-great-parent, it could be something your parents do, sorry, if you don't want to imagine that. But you wonder where it all came from. It is interesting. I find it interesting. If you can have an open discussion with your parents, please don't go home and all do that if you never have. It's maybe not a good idea. But how open were they, and what did they do? And our great-great-great-grandparents and everybody, it's actually probably somewhere in your family already. The same as we look at things like neurodiversity nowadays as well. People will have done it before. And then you've got the other aspect maybe of kink where people talk about where we're reenacting traumas or doing different things, because everyone likes to say, oh, you had a traumatic childhood, that's why you're kinky. And you're like, no, not everybody did, that's not true. Oh, you're kinky because you're fucked up in some way. No, that's not true either. Where did you read that? But it's all to do, it's really interesting, because could it be to do with epigenetics? And I find that particular subject really fascinating. You might not even be the kinky fucker you thought you were exclusively in your family. Your grandmother was way worse than you, potentially. You know, that little sweet person you see as your grandmother. My great-grandmother, I've got a picture of my mum, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, my sister and I. And she was moved from one part of a nursing home to another for sexually assaulting the male nurses. Now, but she actually had very bad Alzheimer's, so you can become very sexual with anything that fucks with your brain, really. and that it's a sad thing. But she also went through 4 husbands and they all died. I don't think it was her. I don't know. It was a long time ago, but she also kept on to her kids. And I'm just curious, like, I wonder who she was, because she was a pretty strong woman, but she washed up men like nobody else. So I don't know. You don't know, do you? So epigenetics are interesting.
I've got a completely different question.
Completely different question is a good thing.
Do you want to cut you off there? You're in flow.
I'm always in a flow. You have to cut me off because I'm full of shit otherwise.
I'm really curious about. I've heard people talking about hypnotic, using hypnosis for dominance and submission.
Uh-huh.
It kind of worries me, and I don't know how unfounded that is. So I've had hypnosis trained in like a formal way, not in a kick way, and it goes
So in a therapeutic way.
counter to everything that I've heard people experience through hypnotic kink. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like people are doing stuff that have been trained specifically just never ever do. And I just wondered if you come across anybody in your work, and whether somebody breaking the safety rules around hypnosis can have positive outcomes or whether it's dangerous. I just wondered if you.
Anyone in here a hypnotherapist? Anyone here a hypnotherapy coach or a hypnotherapist therapist? So it's interesting because the question is hypnotherapy or sexual hypnotherapy good or bad, really, or are there dangers? Anyone here use or has anyone in here been hypnotised? Anyone here people cannot hypnotise? Me, I'm really... Yeah, but it doesn't... So it's interesting how it works on some people, it doesn't work on everybody. When you're a therapist, you're given a moral code of conduct, in theory. When I started, it used to be a list of hundreds of things. Nowadays, it's make up your own, but make sure you're ethical, really, to a certain extent. But there are some guidelines, like don't fuck your clients. That's a good one, especially if you're a child therapist, you know. Not that a lot of people listen. I actually find that, so this is not research, this is my personal experience and maybe clinical. I actually find the most therapists that are complained about, especially in the kink world, are hypnotherapists. So I'm curious about that one. There are lots of hypnotherapy munches and people use hypnotherapy. You can't make someone do something they desperately don't want to do with hypnotherapy. They've got to have some kind of open to it. So could it be bad? Anyone, you don't have to put your hand up, just have a think about this, but does anyone here use kink as a form of therapeutic process for themselves? Maybe that you're trying to redo something or that you're trying to change something that happened to you, you want to relive it, or you want something really new and different, you don't feel that you're that exciting, for lots of reasons. The problem can be, for all of us, is when we repeat trauma, actually that's not a good idea. If you repeat trauma in order to get power over it, that can be okay, but it can also really fuck you up if it goes slightly wrong. And all the experts around trauma, like Bessel van der Kolk and Babette Rothschild, and there are plenty more, talk about that when we have something happen to us, we often want to repeat it as a compulsion because we want to make it better. We want to have control over it. So it might be that we were sexually assaulted or raped. We're going to do rape play because now we're on top of it and I'm in charge and I feel all right about that. That can really fuck us up as well. Because if we repeat a trauma and it goes wrong, you're just reiterating that same message. So I think kink can be therapeutic. It also can be really dangerous if we're using it for that. When we use hypnotherapy, again, you can't necessarily make someone do what they don't want to do, but it might make you break down some of your boundaries before you're ready. It might break through some of the things you're not sure about before you're ready. I'm on field. I made a joke earlier because I opened my Dyson app by mistake because they look really similar. Maybe that's just my eyesight at 60. You know, they're both black and white. And I was thinking to myself, and I put it online, of one clears up the crap and the other one sucks out my very fucking soul, which is field. Because when you're 60, you do not get an interest unless it's from a bloke under the age of 25. Why is that? That's, you know. And they all offer me this most amazing time. And I'm like, no, it won't be. I love you, but it won't be. And It's just bizarre. And when you look at these things and what you're looking for, a lot of people are just looking for a short time and a good time and a fun time. But what a lot of people are on Field at the moment, I'm noticing, is anyone here on Field? Sorry if you are. It's not everybody always, right? So I don't mean it that way. What a lot of people are looking for is a one-off, a good time without commitment. But at the same time, their profile says, I want to, disrupt your soul, take out your tonsils with my cock from the bottom up. I want to, make you bleed from the inside out. I want to push all your boundaries, and I want to take you to hell and back. By the way, I'm just looking for casual and I'm married. And I'm like, what the fuck? What the fuck? No, those two things don't go together for me. I know what sort of submissive I am. I'm demi. My submission grows. In fact, that's why I'm a bit more cautious up front, because my submission grows the more I love someone. So that can be very dangerous for me. And then I'm a cuck queen as well. Does anyone know what a cuck queen is? So I get a lot of pleasure from my partner fucking somebody else. A lot of pleasure. I don't necessarily want to be there. And my answer is always, no, I don't want to find them for you either, because they fancy me, not you. I put all the fucking work in. I'm going to have the benefit then. They have to want you, not me. And I'm just really aware that things like that, this whole pushing of boundaries and that hypnotherapy can come into that. Because it's quite cool. It's a permission granter for a lot of us of break down a few boundaries, but maybe you're not ready to in a relationship, maybe you're not there. I would certainly, if you meet someone who wants to hypnotise you, I would certainly ask them, but I ask this anyway if we're going to play, what have you done when it's gone wrong? Anyone got a horror story? I've got a few. Fuck me if I've got a few. Like hospitals and everything. My most famous one is my coil meeting somebody else's whisk that they decided to put inside me and ripping it out. It's quite a well-known one for me. People know about it. It shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have wrapped round, but it did. It pulls out. It doesn't go like that. It rips out. So I am bleeding like a motherfucker. Things happen. So I want to know, what have you done when something goes wrong? What is your story? What are you going to do? So if we're doing choking play or breath play, do you know how to resuscitate me here? Anyone here know how to resuscitate? If you don't, please learn. If you're the top, it's no good me knowing how to resuscitate, knowing how to sort out a mental health problem, everything else as well, because I'm the one who's on the fucking floor. I can't do a lot from that position. I really do think as kinksters, to be responsible, we need to learn basic resus, basic first aid, and you need to pre-mortem and have a plan of, when this thing goes wrong, what am I going to do? If you have to phone an ambulance, can you? If you've got a wife and 2.3 children at home, or a husband and a puppy and whatever you've got at home, can you be the one who goes to the hospital? Are you going to do that? Can you even? A lot of people are actually still killed in kink. Fuck me, this is getting really depressing, isn't it? So a lot of people are still really hurt, especially around breath play. It's one of the most dangerous things we do. I'm actually going to say it's more dangerous than waterboarding, because we're more likely to do it and we're more likely not to think of the consequences. And you can die very quickly. And there have been women who die. And then there was one guy in Scotland, they were both a little bit pissed. They did some breath play. He finishes, realised he's murdered her, that she's dead. And he's like, oh, shit, wake up, wake up, wake up. What should he have done immediately? Phoned a fucking ambulance, or known what to do. Mouth to mouth or resus, anything. Mouth to mouth isn't asked for anymore, but at least heart compressions or something. I think I've still done mouth to mouth. My throat's already been down hers. I'm not worried about anything else. If we've caught anything, we've caught it, haven't we? No, he goes for a walk for half an hour to have a think about what he should do. And if you think about that, I kind of get it as a trauma response, but it's not going to stop. I mean, Jesus Christ. She could have maybe been saved in that time, or something could have changed. And I'm not talking about serial killers who then go up to chop you up and put you in a suitcase. I mean, that's a bit extreme. People do get hurt in what we do. Anyone here tie a lot or do rope? There's a lot of injuries in rope, there's a lot of damage that can happen, and can happen out of nowhere. Can you hurt someone in kink, do you think? Do you think kink is dangerous? Because I do. You can hurt someone emotionally. Like the domestic violence laws changed how many years ago? Does anyone know this? That the domestic violence laws in the UK changed. Sorry?
2016?
2016, 17, 18, 19, 20. Yeah, about right. Might have been a little bit before. I have to work it out in years. Does anyone else feel like me that COVID was a Marvel blip? It didn't really happen. I lost 2 years of my life, I think. And I'm just like, when were those 2 years? What happened? So to me, they're like a Marvel blip where everyone disappeared and came back. It's very strange. But when the domestic violence laws change, they now incorporate coercion, words. They also include things like, name calling, the words that we use, controlling money. And a lot of us do that in kink if we've got power exchange relationships. But we don't realise I love extreme humiliation. It's one of my favourite things, especially as a cut queen. She was better than you, he was better than you, they were better than you, this was amazing. And I like a lot of that, but it's got to be balanced with, I love you, you're fucking amazing and you're beautiful. I can't just hear the shit all the time, because eventually it will damage my psyche and my well-being. If you're brought up in an environment where you've got parents who are cruel or abusive, it impacts the way a child hears things, it impacts their brains, it impacts the whole of their future. It causes a lot of issues for a lot of children. Surprise, surprise, it does for adults as well. You can't keep hearing that you're a piece of shit. You have to have some kind of balance. And if we do a lot of stuff physically, I remember working with a couple years ago where actually if you took anything to her backside after everything that they'd done, like that, anything like that, her bottom would just open up and bleed immediately. You couldn't even spank her bottom anymore. So we talked about ways around that and scar tape and stuff on the top, eventually how to get around that medically. It's going to take over 18 months of healing because her skin was so damaged. So we can cause damage and we don't know what we're doing. And I know that we should really talk about consent a lot because I like that. Always fuck before you play. Fully understand consensual kink. I teach the workshop in here that's about consent, but I'll also say, and it's not very popular with people, is I don't think you can consent, not fully. You can consent to a moment, you know what's happening, but you don't know the implication of it in 5-10 years' time. And I'll tell you now, I'm in the process of having plasma re-injected into my bursa and my cartilage around here because I've done so much violent play and so much thumping that I've caused long-term damage. And that is kink. But I'm 60, I didn't know that when I was 18, 19, 20. You don't think about it, do you? Who here is 18, 19, 20? Anyone? Or 21, 22, 23, like young? All right, fuck it up. That's not a bad thing. Who here is under the age of 30? That'll do, right. Do you genuinely think, though, because we don't, it's psychologically we don't do it, are you saving up massively for your pensions? Like, you've got a lot of money going aside? Because if you don't start your pension at 19 nowadays, you're fucked, right? You're like, no, I want a good time, or my work does it for me. So you're not going to think, for the moment of pleasure that you're having, that it might cause you damage later. It's really rare that we do that. The older we get, the more likely we are to do that. I think at 60, I've probably got 10, 15 years left that are up for having a really good time and playing. When I look at how fit my parents were, I don't have any worries. But that might not be the case. And yes, even really old people still want to do it. I know, it's shocking, but we do. And we want to play and we want to have these things. But you don't think about it when you're under 30 that this might hurt me when I'm 50, so I won't do it. Do you? Does anyone have that thought as they're about to be double pegged or something? Not really, do you? It's not a thought that crosses your mind. I wrote, if you're on FetLife, I write under the Kink Shrink, and I wrote up a workshop that I did in Norway that was all about the neurochemicals of kink. Has anyone read it? No, probably not. Right. Oh, a few have you? It's fascinating to read or to have a look at. Honestly, it's one of the main things we should understand, that actually you are under the influence of so many drugs when we do kink, internal ones. And the concoction of some of them are so dangerous about saying yes or no, about making hasty decisions. Fucking fascinating about what it does to us. So I've written this whole article, full referencing. If you look me up, I'm the Kink Shrink. Have a read of it, because I feel like everyone who starts should read that article first, let alone anatomy and physiology. It's really interesting about what the chemicals do to us. If you then add in things like hypnotherapy and influences, if you add in alcohol and other things, whoa. Anyone here play when they're stoned or drunk or whatever, or have done? I mean, a lot of people do, and that can be okay. But I would still recommend really making sure that the person you're playing with. So, for example, who here has ever done a scene and it's flipped midway? Something else has been added into it, or you change it, or it grows. For me, that is something I would say, please don't do. And I sound like some old woman, don't I, saying, don't have a fucking good time. It really isn't that, because actually the chemicals involved in that moment are so interesting. You're likely to say yes, but it might actually be one of those times where people retroactively withdraw consent afterwards. Because I didn't really want to, but I was under the influence. I had all these chemicals going off in my body and I didn't know. And it wouldn't surprise me with where we're going in life that somebody will bring that to court one day and they might win. So it's like, it's the same as I say to a lot of people, if you are a white middle-aged man and on the scene, make sure you have a plan for when you're accused of something, because you will be. Is that right or wrong? I don't know, because it is mainly white middle-aged men. I'm really sorry, but it is. So I get that. So have a plan. Have a plan if ever you're going to be accused. I don't care what colour or age or creed or religion you are, because things do go wrong. They do. And if I'm hypnotising someone, fuck me, I would not take that risk. Not in kink, because I think somebody could turn around and say, I've used that and I've gone against their consent, because I'm aware of, even in when I'm working as a psychotherapist, that it's going to go, potentially, someone could use that.
Yeah, I have an experience that in my past, I've been doing kink since I was 15. I was too young, but okay. And I learned something in my young years that I shouldn't have just trusted one person without researching what it was about.
Yeah.
Because I thought being a submissive that was doing everything he said without thinking about myself.
Yeah.
And after 3 years, well, I have to learn everything again. And that's the main reason I have been working with workshops and stuff in Norway.
Yeah.
And getting you up there, because everyone was really fond about that.
Thank you.
Because we need to hear it.
We do need to hear it.
And we need to understand that it's not about taking down your pleasure level, but it's about keeping you safe for a long time.
Did everyone hear that or not? So what this person was sharing was that they started kink very young. They were 15 when they started, and that they listened to one person say, this is the way kink is. So I'm interpreting slightly, and that this is the way that it was. And that actually they realised after quite a few years that that is wrong. But one of the main things I took from what you said was, and thank you for sharing, because it is a big thing, I can feel and see your upset as well, is that we're often told that in kink. We're told that, oh, you're not, anyone here is submissive? How many of you are quite new to the scene? Would you say under 5 years? Under 3? Under 2? Under 1? Okay. For me, what I see, especially when you've got fresh meat on the scene, right, and I mean it that way, is what happens is you get approached by a lot of people. I don't get approached by a lot of people. I don't think it's just my age. I think it's my experience. And I think it's also because of what I do for a living as well. And it's also because of who I am, slightly. Because I will not stand for your bullshit. I will not take a pushing of my boundaries, like I said about being on field, when somebody says, I just want to push your boundaries. You don't even know my boundaries yet. What if I have none? What if I'm into children and dogs? Oh no, I don't want to push those. Okay, so let's do scat. Well, I don't want to push that one. Whereas I'm not into any of those. Can I just point that out? But it is interesting that that's the immediacy. And what a lot of dominants, I'm really sorry if you're dominant, it's not always. What a lot of dominant people do is want that fresh meat, because they can convince you and say to you that this is how a submissive should do it. This is what you should be doing. If you were a good submissive, you would be doing this. If you were a good submissive, regardless of your gender, you should be doing this. And then you get the classic one, because a lot of those chemicals that are involved when we're having this sort of sex and play ramp up in the submissive, ramp up massively, and can get very confused with love, adoration, and I just want to please you. Because of the chemistry of chemicals that's going on, we're more likely to fall in love or be quite obsessed with somebody who's like that. Statistically, way more likely. And then what's interesting is, if they come and say to you, but if you loved me, you would. If you were a good submissive, you would. Anyone ever heard that? Because I certainly have. I really hope you never hear it in a million years of, but this is what all submissives do. Okay, let's go for something different then as a really good example of that. Who here has a vagina? Right? So people with vaginas and a clitoris, you don't have to put your hand up for this. Who does not come from penetration? I certainly do not. 70% of vagina owners and clitoris owners do not come from penetration. That is not a fallacy, that's not made up. They do not come from any form of penetration, even though we know the clitoris is this really interesting structure. What I find interesting then is if I ask somebody who's having sex with somebody with a vagina, and they've slept with maybe 100 or 10 vagina owners, how many do they report to me come from penetration? All of them. Something is going wrong somewhere. Something. And I will say that a lot of people who own vaginas lie, for a start, because we don't want to make you feel bad. So that's a really big thing. Can we please stop lying? Because if I inherit your ex-partner, they think they're fucking God and they're not. Or that we also get this fallacy of, well, I was talking to my youngest over lunch, because this is the way I... Interesting conversations with children, but she is a fully fledged adult. And she was talking about breaking up with somebody and different things, but they had that goodbye sex, where she squirted 5 times. And he was like, get in, yes. And it's great. But actually, most people who squirt won't have an orgasm at the same time. But a lot of people assume when someone squirts that they do have an orgasm. No, actually, most do not. And it is still mainly piss, by the way. It is. Please look up. I've got a whole writing on that as well, with all the backed up research. It's got other stuff in it, and depends the makeup of your Skene's glands and a few other things, but it's still mainly urine. Even if you empty your bladder before, it's amazing if you look at the fMRIs of what happens is your bladder fills up immediately and you squirt. And it's made up of a few other things, but it's still mainly urine. And urine is not sterile. Can we also get that one out of the way, please? The amount of people who still say, but urine's sterile. No, it's not. Look, I like piss play, I'll be honest with you, but it's not sterile. It's not. And if you've met someone like me who's just had chemo, I haven't had chemo recently, but I had chemo. I've had cancer twice recently. When I was on chemo, if you drank my piss the next day, guess what you're drinking? Chemo. For 3 days at least. That's why we're told to flush twice and be really careful, because we're still radioactive. And then you get somebody who says, oh, it doesn't matter, I'm really into it. Okay. It's all about that knowledge. And we do say to people who start often in the scene, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. If you were, you should try this. Actually, you just need to do you. If you want to do it, do it. If you don't want to do it, don't fucking do it. It doesn't make you a better submissive. I don't like it the other way either. If you were a real dom, you would do this to me. Fuck off. Who's got the right to say that to any of us? It's awful, isn't it, that we do that?
Quite interactive, just chatting with people, you know, coming to events like this and such. Like, I think the reason I kind of asked about the hypnosis thing is I was part of a conversation where I was hearing a ton of red flags, and I thought under any other circumstance, I would immediately say, please don't do this, this is really dangerous, you know, they were logging into a website, somebody was creating some hypnosis downloads, pre-written. Nobody is there to check on them. It wasn't crafted for them, so it wasn't their unique. Like anything, there was no safety involved, and they were finding things that were very destructive from what they described. But in this environment, I felt like it would be kink shaming to say, like, it sounds incredibly harmful, and I just didn't say.
So,
I just thought I must not know enough about this, and I should find out. But I find it hard because it's like you shouldn't. Yeah, where's the point
So you're asking where's the line between telling someone to stay safe and kink shaming? There is no line. Safety matters above anything else. There is no line. Like when I work with kids and you read about like if a 15-year-old says to me, yeah, so my partner really wants a threesome. And so we've been thinking, I went, what? So were you going to choose a girl in maths? Because it's always a girl that partner's choosing in that moment. And what are you going to do? So he's fucking her like this next to you. You're 15 years old and you sit next to her in maths the next day. Can you really handle that? Do you even know? Like, have you even had a fucking orgasm yet? What sort of sex have you had? What have you done? And I'm getting questions like that at 14, 15. Like the youngest father in the UK is 10 years old. 10 years old and he's got a child. 10, fucking hell. So when I hear things, it's easy at that one because you go, well, actually, there's legality coming in there. But actually, it's not. If you've got two 15-year-olds, the police are going to do nothing about two 15-year-olds sleeping together because it's mutual, it's reciprocal. If they're selling each other nudes, if they're sending each other nudes, they actually are breaking the law. They can go on the sex offenders register. And that's happened to people under the age of 16 before. The first couple that were persecuted was 3 or 4 years ago. They were sending each other nudes. The parents went mad. They're on the sex offenders register for 10 years. Those children are. So stupid. It just blows my mind. And that's parents complaining about the other person and those parents get involved and it all blew up. I don't think there's any line. I would always welcome somebody saying, can I share my worry about safety? Look, if you don't want to hear it, it's fine. I'm always going to give someone that choice. But I remember a few years ago, there was somebody quite dangerous around. I'd spoken to him. He would say things like, I think one of the last things he said to me was, but if we are together and you're giving me a blowjob in the kitchen and one of your daughters walks in, what are you going to do? I went, number one, if my kids were in the house, I wouldn't be giving you a blowjob in the kitchen. There'd be a door shut. My house is quite open plan. You know, I think, and he went, no, wrong answer. You'd stay on your knees and you'd finish. And I was like, no. And I wasn't the only one hearing this shit from him, right? And it could have just been shit. He then gets together with this young, beautifully stunning looking woman who they then start posting some pictures together. And I'm scared for her. I'm sorry, but I am. And I'm not the only one because I've had 6 people contact me now about him. And a lot of people come into my room telling me who's dangerous and who isn't. A lot. So I've got over 100,000 hours of clinical experience and a lot of it is with kinksters. So people talk. I contacted her and I said, your life is none of my business and you might find this intrusive and I'm sorry if you do. I have serious concerns about the person you're with. If you want to contact me about them, that's up to you. She said, fuck off, you fat, ugly, jealous cunt or bitch, whatever it was that she said to me. I said, no worries, my door is always open. Left it a year. And a year later, she did contact me because it all became very true. And she said, I don't think I should have spoken to you that way. And I said, no, I understand, actually. I do understand. If you want to talk, my door's open. I would suggest you see someone. You can only do as much as you can do. Problem is, if somebody is turned on by a lot of this stuff, come on, who's ever been told by someone else that your partner's cheating on you or something? Or who's been told that your partner's doing something really wrong? Or who's been told that one of your family members has done something really wrong? You tend to get very angry. We still go back to, we shoot the messenger, don't we? And we do that because we're initially angry. But actually, if somebody says, fuck, that's not safe, have you really looked into it? I hope that you have, because often it's not safe. And a lot of what we do isn't safe, but that's where risk aware comes in and the awareness of it. But do we truly get that awareness? I don't know. You had your hand up a second ago.
Sorry, I was just wondering about, you were mentioning chemical reactions.
Can you speak up?
I'll repeat it, I promise, as well. So I'm being asked about the chemical, I mentioned the chemical reactions in the body.
And just like subspace.
Subspace. Right, so are you asking about subspace? Okay. When we have enough chemicals in our body, for some of us, some of the time, By the way, never hit subspace. And I've had a lot of sex and I've had a lot of play. It's not somewhere I've ever been, personally. It is often a mix of chemicals. You've got major chemicals happening when you're playing. You've got oxytocin, norepinephrine / adrenaline, dopamine and serotonin. And as a chemical mix, if you're playing with somebody, that mix of chemicals can lead to a slightly altered state. It's not just subspace. Can we also, it's everybody's space. Anyone here a top or a dom? Anyone here ever reached top or dom space? Yeah. So it's everybody's. It's the same as drop. Drop isn't just for subs. It's for life, not for Christmas. It belongs to everybody. Anyone here play a musical instrument, ever play in a band, or anyone sung in public or done a show in public? You get fucking drop afterwards. You drop because of the change in chemicals. It's also when those chemicals stop and the way they fall off, the stuff you need afterwards, we need to chat, we need to talk, we need to kind of digest to make those chemicals work for us. Otherwise, actually, we can end up feeling more traumatized. And it's the same with space. It's an altered state because of the timing and the mix of chemicals. There are some fallacies out there, if you read them, that somebody once wrote, if you hit this person X amount of times, then you do this, and then you withdraw this, and then you do that, you'll get them into space. Great, because then the sub is going to feel like a fucking failure if they don't manage it, and it's not true. It's not proven, there's no fucking research, it is not true. Some people will reach that space in a nothingness, and some people will take a lot of pain, because you've also then got all these endorphins running inside you as well. And some people will just do it emotionally, and some people will never do it. It just depends on the person. Trying to get someone into that space is interesting, because if that's your goal, you're setting yourself up for failure. Both of you, it might not always work. But it is a mixture of hormones, for sure.
But if you get someone into that space, you should, like when you talk about being ready for what comes. Because in subspace, at least for me, I'm into everything. Everything is okay, but also my boundaries.
Yeah.
So I always need to tell my dominant that if I accept stuff like needles or
Yep.
some instrument and stuff, if I do that, I'm not in the consent way. I'm not in my right mind.
You're not in your right mind, so
And I had one experience about that in Oslo, and it was a really good friend of mine. He got a new single tail, and he just for fun said, "Oh, I want to use this on you." And I said, "Well, of course, I trust you." And he said, "Well, I will not do it now because you would never consent to this. So sorry that I even asked.
I will repeat this, honestly.
Sorry I asked. We will talk about it tomorrow." So I'm really happy he was my friend and he knew about my boundaries.
Yeah.
But
Also, a little bit, why ask? If you know that you wouldn't consent, I've got a little bit of a problem with that. So, again, what was being shared was, when you go into subspace, what they're aware of personally is, so some of us just drift away, we're gone with the fairies. Some of us will become totally permissive and totally submissive and say, whatever you want to do, do. If you're the top in that scenario, do nothing. I've watched people do it before. I remember being at a party where a friend of mine was totally gone. And I watched him, he started to do some other things. And I started to think, that's not right. That's not right. And I am that interfering cunt who will go straight in that you don't want at your play parties. I am. And I walked over and I said, what are you doing? And he said, we're playing. Who the fuck are you? Don't interfere. And I said, I know she wouldn't consent to that. He went, she's out of it. It doesn't matter. I went, you need to fucking step away and leave her alone. And I called the DM over, and of course I got told off for interfering, because I always do. But when she came round again, she wouldn't have consented. You were sharing that somebody said to you, hey, I bought a new single tail, I'd quite like to use it on you, would you like it? You say, of course. But then they said, well, no, actually, I don't think I will. It's not the right time, because you wouldn't really consent to it. I've got a little bit of a problem with you being asked in the first place if they knew that. But also, it is so true. When you are in a different space, then it's not the time to change anything. Cosmic, who runs LAM, will tell you a story of a time he was seeing somebody very different sexual orientation to him. She was a woman, only wanted to sleep with women, didn't want any sexual contact with anyone of the male gender whatsoever, but they played together regularly and they enjoyed playing. In the middle of a very heavy play session, one afternoon or evening, she turned around and said, "For fuck's sake, will you just fuck me?" Fuck me, she said. Do you at that point? I really hope that all of you say no. That's not what they'd agreed on. She is a lesbian. She doesn't want penetration or sexual contact with anyone who owns a penis. So he stopped the scene immediately and he said, let's just come down, let's work ourselves out, let's have a conversation about this later or tomorrow and we'll see where we are. And after a couple of days of conversation, she decided she did want to try sex with him. But they did it just as that, and then they built up again and did those things. That's a good way of doing things. It's the right way of doing things. But a lot of us think, oh, opportunity, it's here, it's now. And it's going to go. We might not get it again, but you will. It's very likely you will get it again. So subspace is never a time to change anything that anyone does, either or top space. But how do you know your top's in that space? You need to ask somebody, what are the signs of you being gone? Do you know what physical symptoms, emotional or other symptoms that you have? I was once written to by a young woman who said to me, I've been raped by my dom. And I said, God, I'm so sorry to hear that. And she then proceeded to tell me a bit of her story. To me, this is a clusterfuck scene. It's not actually rape, which is awful, but let me explain. They agreed that when she was in her little space in her head, they didn't have any form of sex because her little was very little and they weren't sexual when her little was little. They were having a really heavy scene of pain, of instruments, of sex as well. In the middle, she said, I need a wee. She went to the toilet. The door was open between them. She said, why is the door open? He went, let me watch you. They'd never done that before. She is on the loo having a wee. He's watching her. Her head goes completely little while she's wiping. I'll come back to you, I promise.
Who opened the door or did she just leave it?
She left it open and she thought he was going to close it. He thought she was going to close it. He went, no, leave it open.
Sorry.
It became a real mess. That's the problem. As she wiped, she went whoop right into a little girl. She came out. They carried on. Who's to blame? Who's to blame? Should he have noticed that she changed? If so, how? Should she have said that she's changed? If so, how? To me, that's not... It was awful for him as well. He didn't know till way afterwards, and he felt physically sick and really not okay about what had just happened. That's a clusterfuck. But also, if you can't control where your head's going sometimes, you've got to be really careful. And for me, if I rewind that to the beginning, where it went wrong was when she said, I need a wee, don't bring anything different in. So I'm going to lay the blame partially with him because he said leave the door open, which was new to both of them, which changed her mindset. But I'm also going to leave it with her because she didn't say, no, let's close the door. That's new. Let's not do that. Don't know what will happen. But I don't really know who's to blame. That's a clusterfuck. That's terrible. But again, headspaces really fucking matter around consent.
So my question is, like when we speak about dom drop, you have a dom drop and then you also have the aftercare, and there's this, like the point where you need a few minutes to get yourself together so that you could do the aftercare, right? But sometimes the sub actually wants that attention immediately, especially if it's after some heavy play. And this is something which I wanted to know your opinion.
So the question was, if you've got top drop or dom drop, but you're also doing aftercare, and some subs want aftercare immediately, like what was my opinion? I think negotiate the aftercare before you start. Before you even start, because actually I know people who've played with 30 people as the dungeon monitor. They're fucked by the last one, and there is no aftercare. What is the aftercare that you want? Because some of us will say, fucking leave me alone and don't talk to me. Some of us will say, no, pick me up and make me into a sausage roll with 300 blankets and feed me chocolate and put on a film. And then you can't do that if it's a fucking Monday and you've both got to go to work, maybe. For me, aftercare is part of negotiation. So, like, if you're both dropping, who deserves the aftercare? Again, both of you. When I'm working with couples or thruples or different people, I talk about something called the emotional jug. And sometimes when you come in, or you come in from work or anything else as well, and you're all expected to do different things, maybe you've got kids or whatever, one of the most important things you can say or share with a partner is where you are emotionally. How are you right now? I'm on a fucking 3, I've got nothing left to give. I'm on a 5, go and grab a bath, I'll work this out. Or I'm on a 2, you're better off than I am, you take over for a bit. When we're dropping, we might not know what we need if we haven't dropped before, but it's got to be part of care. We can also prepare for drop beforehand by what we eat, what we drink, and who we are. We need a shit ton of protein. A lot of people go for sugar. When you're at a lot of places where there are dungeons, you'll find loads and loads of sugar, candy type stuff. Big mistake. It'll give you a high, but it'll give you an even bigger drop afterwards. Protein allows for the gentler drop. So eating beforehand is important, making sure you're okay chemically, having a look at what drugs you take. Another talk I did in Norway, and one I've written up as well, is the impact of everyday drugs that you take, including hay fever meds, on your sexuality and on you. I'll come back to you in a minute, I promise you. It's like medication that you get prescribed. I've written out most of those, and under-the-counter drugs or your illegal drugs and the impact that they have on you. So, like, if somebody says, I was really dry this week and I wasn't getting turned on, and the partner says, yeah, are you not into us anymore? And they're like, well, I don't know. Actually, no, they just had hay fever and they were taking a fucking antihistamine, which will dry your cunt up as well, by the way. But we assume that won't do that, but it does. Paracetamol does impacts you. Everyday drugs impact you more than you know. So we need to do those check-ins, that emotional jug of what's going on. What have you taken today? Well, actually, I've taken 2 ibuprofen, I've taken a couple of paracetamol, I've taken some hydrocortisone, or I don't know, whatever it is that I've taken. That's going to impact your capacity to look after, to be looked after, and the responses that you're going to have. But how many people include that in their negotiations? Yeah, actually, by the way, I'm on hay fever meds. We don't, do we? Because it's only you don't need a prescription for it, it's nothing. It doesn't matter. Fucking really does. That's why I've written it out for you in really clear ways. If you look up the writing of, shit, I take that drug, I didn't know it did that. It's really worth looking up. Who here is on any form of medication? Loads of people are. Who here takes over-the-counter drugs sometimes? Like paracetamol, like Nurofen, or different things that you can get. Might be an antacid of some kind, or different things. We all take things. And a lot of people take a lot of drugs that are under the counter as well, especially for a good time.
Just a suggestion, whenever you guys taking meds, have a copy of the BNF with you, the British National Formulary. Check what the side effects are on the meds you're taking and your sample's taking, or your dog.
Yeah, if you can get hold of a BNF, so the BNF is the British National Formula. It's a book that basically tells you all the side effects. However, if you are somebody who really worries about taking drugs and illness and you have something going on, don't read the fucking thing. Right? Because, you know, shit, I've got all of that. I'll say the same about the DSM-5. Don't fucking read it, because you've got everything in there, right? You've got everything going. You're like, shit, I have got all these problems. You might not have. We need to have a certain amount in a certain way. So that makes a difference as well. But it's all about the negotiation, the beforehand. Like, how are you? What do you need? What do you want? You have to say as a Dom what you need and want as well. But most Doms don't do this either. What most Doms go into is, I'm fine, let me look after you. Actually, as a submissive, my role, if I'm in a relationship with you, is to look after you. As part of what I do, it's quite natural. So you tell me that's your favourite tea, it's in my house. You tell me that's your favourite food. I'm making it. The drinks are there. It's ready to go. That's part of my makeup as a submissive. But also part of it is for you to show your human qualities, and that means you not being okay sometimes. If you're a fucking god, how can I look after you? You're impenetrable. You're not. I can't do that. We are human, and we're human before anything else. So you need to negotiate what you need in aftercare as well. It might take me 5 minutes, or it might take this. It's also a really good idea. Anyone here ever breastfed children? I certainly have. Right, so if you've breastfed children and you've got quite a few children, what you're aware of is you're about to put your baby on a boob and you've got 2 or 3 more running around needing something else. One of the things they'll say to you, maybe, is get a box ready of things that the others can do. I know that sounds ridiculous, but so if I've got my 4th daughter or my 3rd daughter and I've got the other ones running around, and if any of you are having pervy thoughts about breastfeeding, we'll talk about that as well if you want, but if they're running around, what I used to do is get a box for each of them with like special bookings, special toys, special things. So what it did is it gave them something to do while I was busy with something else. When you're a dom, I'm not suggesting you breastfeed your sub, by the way, right? That's not. What then happens is that, but if you can say, I've got this ready in my mind, if you've pre-mortemed it or you wrap them up very quickly and then you take your 5 minutes, it might work. You might swaddle, you might coddle, you might do something else to give you a little bit of time. So there are things you can do in advance to look after yourself as well, but all it takes is conversation. I need to look after myself. I can't manage this right now. It's not wrong. I don't owe you aftercare. And really hear this, no one owes you aftercare. It's part of the negotiation. You don't have to be looked after afterwards. You might not want to be. You need to find out if they need aftercare as well. And if that person isn't into your aftercare, don't fucking play with them. Just don't do it. You were going to say.
It's just a different question. So you mentioned 2 things there where once you're talking about dungeon monitors, maybe watching 30 transitions that you succeeded on it, another one where you've had to step into a scene where a dungeon monitor didn't recognise it. Do you think that too much of our community, unfortunately, the role of dungeon monitor is actually just being willing to volunteer that night to stand in the corner rather than actually really being trained for that role?
But, okay, so the question was really, when I was giving the example of stepping into somebody's play session at a party, and then dungeon monitors, and also some dungeon monitors also play that night because they're the one that provides. Do I think it's just like a title, and people volunteer maybe for different reasons? Well, yes, for some. But how can we get qualified in it? What does it mean? As somebody who works a lot in kink, there is no qualification for me to pass to say, I know more about kink than anybody else. Now, ironically, has anyone here heard of Pink Therapy, the Pink Therapy group? So the big LGBTQI. So Dom, who runs it, Dominic, is my supervisor. And we are in talks, and I'm putting it forward to their ethical committee and this is a big thing because who am I to do it as well, of putting forward maybe some kink exams so that therapists can start to take some kink and poly exams. So you then might be able to say, have you got any training in this? And you can say, yeah, Pink Therapy Group, not their GSRD, which is about gender and sexuality and different things, but these will be add-ons to say, I've taken some exams in all of these. And I would go through the epigenetics, I would go through the chemicals, I would go through consent, everything that we do, so they can then take all of these to be more qualified. But only, like, what the fuck do I know? I'll come back to you, I promise. But what, as a dungeon monitor, what should you know? They would not know that my friend would have that reaction. They wouldn't. It might be that other people talk about discomfort that they feel about the extremity of a scene. So when you're about to do a scene in a dungeon, if it's going to be very extreme, please warn the dungeon monitors, because then they know and they can warn other people. Should they have first aid? I think so, but they don't have to if somebody else has first aid on the scene. So like, this for me is like cheerleading. I know that's a really strange mix, but it is, right? Because my daughter runs a cheerleading gym. I'm their safeguarding officer. Do they need to know everything about safeguarding? No, they just need to ask me. Often at first aid at a competition, has anyone here ever done cheerleading? No? Okay, just fantasized about them then, okay. Over age, I hope. So what's interesting is a lot of the paramedics and different people that are there aren't very qualified for some of the accidents that some of these kids and adults have. I mean, Jesus, at Worlds a couple of years ago, I watched somebody do a tumble, they landed, I watched their bone break straight through the skin. Gone, that was it. You are not prepared for that as a paramedic or a St. John's ambulance person. You're like, fuck, what do I do with that? I'm really well known for carrying trunky around with me. I've got this really fancy suitcase and it's got more medical stuff in it than they have, and they know me and they'll chuck people over to me sometimes to have those things. They don't always know what they're doing. If I've got a kid having a panic attack, a full-blown panic attack, I watched a mental health nurse run around after a child saying, calm down, breathe. They're the two things you don't say to somebody having a fucking panic attack, right? You don't say calm down and you don't say breathe. They're both completely wrong. So head coach comes up to me and says, do you think you can help? And I went, if you get him out of the way, yes. And can I say whatever I want? And can I do whatever I want? Do I have in loco parentis and is it okay? And within 3 minutes, she was back on the floor because she'd just seen somebody's arm break. She was back on the floor, she did it, she runs up, she jumps up, puts her arms and legs all around me. I was like, oh, there's consent. And she goes, oh my God, thank you, thank you. And now I'm known for that in that area. They don't necessarily know. I do, I know quite a lot about cheer because my daughter's a fucking world champion again and again and again and again in this gym. 10 years winning Summit back to back with different teams. And that Summit is Worlds, it's huge. I do know a lot about this stuff, but then can I prove some of my qualifications to you? No, I can't, because there is no fucking exam that allows you to be that sort of specialist. So I think it can be really interesting if you go to an event to ask, what do the dungeon monitors do? What is their job? What are they supposed to be here for? What are their qualifications? Some of them have had talks around consent. Some of them may know first aid. They're only talks. You can't be qualified.
That's the thing I wonder if, in reality, community-wise, there's probably what, 6 or 7 large events in London. Those could quite easily combine together to produce a course for dungeon monitors.
Yeah, maybe.
It's on those bases.
It'd be lovely if they all got together. If they got, it'd be really, yeah, you can ask when you go in, but I think the problem is as well, what we've got here is a problem of politics. Because what the suggestion was that why don't all these big events get together and put something together? They won't. They won't, because they're in competition with each other. They all think they're the better person to teach it. What you need is somebody completely outside of it offering services, but then we charge. I charge. If you come and see me, I'm not cheap. I know I'm not cheap. However, I do also see 2 people for free, 2 people for half price. I do things like this for free. And every Thursday, the first Thursday of every month, although that's about to change to a different day, I run a free workshop for CPD for people as well. I do a lot for free. I can't do everything for free. And kink doesn't pay. If you're invited, like going to Norway, I loved it. I had a great time. I've been asked before, I'll go again. But I don't get paid for my time. My flight gets paid for, my hotel gets paid for, and my food. If I go into a corporate business, it's somewhere between 5 to 8 grand to employ me for a day. That's how much I can charge, given my experience and given what I do. Cheerleading doesn't pay, kink doesn't pay. So if you ask someone to take some exams to commit, a lot of the groups won't pay for them to do it either. So you get politics and you get money coming into it. Because lots of these events don't make as much money as you think they do. Believe me, they don't. They just don't. And I see the same in cheer. Everyone says, oh, you've got a really successful gym, you must be making a fortune. They're not. It's a numbers game, and it doesn't matter if they're the best in the world, it doesn't mean they're making money. And it comes down to money and politics. And should we put money and politics over people's safety? Of course not. But even if I said to everybody on the scene, would you all mind putting £5 towards a set of courses that can be written and done to help everybody else, it'll be under 1% that will do it. If people don't want to do it. When I offer stuff for free, it's interesting. I find a lot of those clients won't always turn up. So I have quite strong boundaries about those things. Whereas people that pay seem to really value it and do. I don't know. There's no right or wrong. It's just really difficult. So you've got politics and shit coming into it. So some groups really do. If you're going to a party, I would ask what qualifications, what are the rules for the DMs? What do they follow? What's gone wrong in the past? The same as, again, I go back to that question I ask a lot of DOMs if I'm going to play. What have you done when something's gone wrong? What's your plan for when something goes wrong? And if they don't have the answer to either of those, if they're my age-ish, and they turn and say nothing's ever gone wrong, and they've been doing it as long as I have, I'll be like, that's not physically possible. It's just not possible. The same as when those guys are claiming every woman I've fucked has definitely had an orgasm. It's just not humanly possible. Sorry. If you slept with 10 vagina owners, 7 of them won't have come. Now, don't get me wrong, statistically, it might only be 1 or 2 who have not. But it's impossible if you slept with 100 people that they've all had an orgasm. It's just impossible. But people lie, and they lie about experiencing this as well. You had your hand up a minute ago, didn't you?
Wondering advice for finding kink-friendly counselling.
So kink-friendly counselling or therapy. So anyone here ever had therapy or thinks about therapy or wants to go into therapy, right? So, or want to be a counsellor. Can't tell you how many of my clients end up being therapists. It's outrageous. It's great, I love it, but it's a lot. What does kink mean? So when you go on the scene, what you'll do is, so again, there is no such thing as a qualification in kink. So what you'll find is people will say, I'm kink friendly, I'm kink active, or they might say I've got some form of qualification. In what will be my first question. I would ask them, what does kink friendly mean? Because it's not your job, if you come in as my client, it's not your job to educate me. It's my job to educate myself. However, I'm still going to ask questions about you. I've been doing this a long time. I've got over 100,000 clinical hours. I might know what I mean by kink. I might not know what you mean. So it takes conversation, but then do I sound like I know what I'm talking about? You've got NSWF or whatever, NWS, fucking hell. Whatever it's called, there's an American group. You've got Pink Therapy over here, and they have a lot of LGBTQI qualified counsellors, because what you've got is you've got people who can take exams in being, it's like gender, queerness, sexuality. There is nothing in kink, which is why I'm having these discussions at the moment. Not by a really, there's lots of people who put them together, but not by a really good body who will really then start to learn about these things. Because again, I want a therapist who understands that, who could turn and say to me, hang on a second, were you on a lot of X while you were doing that? Or maybe they say, because actually, I want my therapist to say to me, don't fucking do that, it's bad for you. But I don't want them to do it because they say kink is bad for me. Does that make sense? There's a difference of, why the fuck are you doing that? Whereas I approve and I love kink, maybe don't do that, compared to, oh, why are you doing kink? Or educate me about kink. And because you meet so many, it's such an expansive topic, that's the problem as well. I don't offer a free session to see if we're compatible. My time is my time, you pay for it. Some people do, that might be worth doing. But the Pink Register, I'm not on it. I don't have to be, I don't even have a fucking website. I absolutely go by recommendation only. And I have a lot of non-kink clients as well. I have vanilla clients. I know that's shocking, but I do. You'll also find a lot of English, anyone here not English? That is me actually, anyone here not English, right? Not me. I'm not English either. Fuck me. I do have an English passport as well. So if I'm going to go for my English side, so I don't sound like I'm against this, we are shit about talking about sex. When a book was written about us, about English people, we don't talk about death, we don't talk about what we earn, and we don't talk about sex. We're really bad at it. It's the same in therapy. Even if, again, if you're going to talk about sex, you need a psychosexual therapist, and that means they've done an extra 2 years on sex and sexual problems, which is also different to kink and polyamory. I did a 2-year postgraduate psychosexual. Do you know how much of it was about kink and polyamory? 2 years I did. How much? A day. That's what, and then that person's qualified under COSRT, C-O-S-R-T, to then talk about sex and sexual problems even to you and me, and I'm like, I don't think you are. Is that to add to that? Is that right? So give me 1 minute then. So there isn't a perfect thing that says anyone is qualified. However, who here has seen a therapist in the UK at least once in their life? Do you know that the therapist you saw in the UK doesn't have to be qualified to see you? We have no governing body in the UK. Anyone can call themselves a therapist, a psychologist. Psychologist is a bit more dodgy. It's a slightly protected term, but only in some ways. So You don't even have to have a fucking degree in psychology. Not only do you not have to have a degree, you don't have to have any post-grads either afterwards. So it's really important that we ask the person we're seeing who they are and what they do. Like, for example, if you come to me and you say, are you BACP approved? My answer will be, no, I'm not even a fucking member. Why? Because there are 32 governing bodies for therapists at the moment in the UK in order for you to be... The way they verify them is you write a fucking essay after you're qualified, it's sent to your peers who may have less experience than you, and they can turn around and say, yes, you're BACP accredited or approved by an essay. And if you fail the essay, if someone doesn't like it or they're not sure about it, you have to wait 6 months before you can do it again. And that's just for the BACP. But the BACP may not get the license from the government to even be the governing body. It might be COSRAT, or it might be something more to do with a different body. So there's nothing that protects you from seeing a therapist in the UK. I've got fucking psychologists who are my clients from America who are licensed. They don't ask me if I'm licensed. It's really strange. They're licensed, they have to be. And in different countries, we have to be licensed. In the UK, we do not. So someone can call themselves a fucking miracle worker and you go and see them. I will not become BACP accredited. I'm not going to be accredited by anybody until the government says this is the governing body, then I will do whatever they need me to do. I'll do it then. That person, are we going to add to the same thing or?
No, it's about safety questions.
Okay, come back in a minute. So.
When you have play partners, is there a line where that crosses into
Ethical. So it depends what you call it. So the question was, is if you are playing with multiple play partners, does that cross the line into ENM, ethical non-monogamy? I don't like the word ethical non-monogamy. Your ethics might really differ from mine. I like consensual non-monogamy, it's personal. It's different, because you might say, but ethically, and I'm like, fuck your ethics, they're shit, these are mine. So I prefer, have we spoken about it? But if you've got no commitment to anybody, what blows my mind is, and I see a lot of thruples and groups different times, is they don't agree on their language. They don't agree on their rules or what they're doing. But it's the same with just having sex with somebody. What are your rules? What is it you expect from me? What do I expect from you? Ethical non-monogamy means, technically, different things to different people. It might mean sex with multiple people, but then all those people might talk about it. It might mean not loving more than one partner. Do we mean monogamy? What the fuck is monogamy as well? Like, we're all serial monogamists anyway. None of us are true monogamists. If you've had more than one partner, you're not really a monogamist anymore, but you are. In many ways, you might not want multiple partners. So what you've got to do is have conversations with multiple people and ask what that means. That's what I would say. Would anyone say anything different to that? It means different things to different people, but words are so fucking important. It's the conversation. So if you don't have a conversation and you're playing with 10 people, I mean, fuck me, your diary, I don't know how you would ever manage that. I've run workshops on polyamory before and someone says, I've got 17 partners. I'm like, how the fuck do you do that? Like, sure, at least, please tell me at least 10 of them are out of the country or something, so you just see them once a year. But time is your biggest enemy in polyamory. It's not love, it's not the size of your heart necessarily, it's time. And people also still cheat when they're polyamorous, by the way. No difference in the statistics. So when we're poly, we're just as likely to cheat as if we're not, which just blows my mind as well. But it's all about what each person sees it as, for me. And that's why you need the discussions and the conversations, because it might be that you think, well, no, I don't need to tell anyone about this, or I don't need to tell anyone about that, but you might need to. You need to ask the other person, because they might feel very betrayed by something you're doing. My youngest daughter was with someone, and this is over something really silly. I have cold sores. I have HSV1, which 72% of the British population do. And my mum gave them to me from when I was a kid. My sister and I joke about it. My mum either hated me more or loved me more, we're not sure which, because my sister didn't get the cold sores. But then did she do that because she loved her, or did she kiss me more because she loved me more? We don't know. But I'm still aware I have it. The amount of people who say to me, no, you can still go down on me with a cold sore is shocking, because they're like, no, but they're different. Yes and no. They still create each other. Fucking hell, that's really ignorant. But also, you can't tell when you're shedding the virus or not because it's a virus. So there's always a risk that you're going to give it to somebody. However, if I've got an active cold sore, I didn't go near my kids. Not one of my kids has cold sores. So I clearly didn't love any of them either. And I've got 4 daughters. She has sex with her partner. She comes down to dinner, to breakfast with mum, and mum says, how's your cold sore? My daughter goes, what fucking cold sore? And he says, oh, I've got a really bad cold sore on the inside of my mouth. I can't tell you how ill she was a week and a half later. She had, it's called gingivohepatic vastomas. Her gums were coming away from her teeth. Her mouth was just all ulcers. She had a raging temperature. It's like nothing you've ever seen. It was so bad. And again, consensually, what's the agreement over little things that we've even got ethically to say? Do you even know though? Because when she mentioned it to him, he went, well, I didn't know. What do we talk about? What is the safety level between us? I actually think multiple partners, friends with benefits, situationships take more fucking conversations and more agreement and more in-depth talk than meeting one person and having conversations with them, seeing it through. Because you're involving multiple people. Like if you say to somebody, what is safe sex? Safe sex does not exist. There is no such thing as safe sex. I can't get that through to you enough. There's sex where you can maybe avoid pregnancy. There's sex where maybe you can avoid some form of STI, but you cannot avoid them all. Because it's about skin to skin. It's about, do you even know how to use a condom? How many people are lying to you? When I was having chemo, I met this guy and he said, oh yeah, no, I'm still really interested in you. Thanks, even though I was bald. I think I was supposed to be grateful, but whatever. And I said, no, mate, I have boundaries and standards as well. And I said, have you been tested? And he went, why the fuck would I want to get tested? That's just beyond me. I don't know, for your own fucking safety, for everyone else's safety. And he went, are you saying in order for me to have sex with you, I have to be tested? I went, yes, you do. By the way, I was never going to sleep with him. But he then went to the clinic and he sends me a video. I'm not kidding. He's waiting outside the clinic. He's videoing people like this. Like that. And he says, why the fuck am I here with all these skanks getting tested? I can't tell you how much I wanted to put that video online, but it had people's faces in. I wouldn't do that, but I wouldn't do it anyway. But the shock at that, if that's what you think, like fucking hell, what are the rules around you for testing? Fluids on how you clean your toys. I have my toys, you play with my toys on me. You play with my toys inside me. And after 43 years, I've probably got most toys, and if I haven't, it's because I don't fucking want that one. So, okay, get to know the weight of them and how they work, but they've got my bodily fluids on in my way, because you can't clean all toys safely either, not all always. So I don't want that on me. I don't want those things. I have a compromised immune system for a start. What are all the rules? Each person's is different. And mine might be a bit more strict because of those things. So if you're playing with multiple people, it's down to each person, I think. You were going to say something about safety?
Yeah, where can we learn better safe practices? I'm thinking about this a lot. I realise that we probably play it very safe to the point where I'm now like, well, yeah, maybe we could go a bit further, but I don't. Beyond this point, I don't know what is safe. I don't know who to ask. Do I talk to professional dogs? Do I go to someone like yourself? Like who is
There are lots of people who make claims that we can teach stuff like that. I'll tell you now. So I also do kinky life coaching, right? So I do that for couples and other people. Are you all right? Do you need to get up?
Yeah.
You okay? It's all right. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. No. No, no worries.
So it's really important sometimes that people do come and see me about sort of things. So a lot of people come and see me about opening up to polyamory or something as well, because I'll think of things they've never thought of in their life because I've been doing this for so long, even down to how do the finances work. And people say, what finances got to do with poly? Fucking everything if you're getting a hotel room with somebody else and you're taking them out on a date. Or you don't realise, for example, that sharing that plate, which was your special plate you bought for your anniversary, is more hurtful than you fucking them in your bed or changing your sheets or whatever. So there are lots of things that come in. It's really hard. There isn't anyone who's qualified. It doesn't exist. So it's about finding someone. You say professional dom, What makes them professional? Like, what qualifications have they got? Ideally, I'd want to see somebody who's been doing this for a long time, has qualifications or knows a shit ton about the law, about medical aspects, so ask all the right questions, so they've got to be a solicitor and a doctor and a therapist, and that doesn't exist. So as much of that as you can get in anyone, and explore your own concept. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I find people come and talk to me about those things more because I'm not going to say to you, don't do that. I'm going to say to you, why do you want to do that? What do you hope to get out of it? What risks can you see are associated with it? And have a read of this, this, and this. But there's only so much you can read. You have to go out and do it. There's only so many poly books, for example, that you can read before you try it. And you might think, well, I'm not going to be jealous. Fuck me, jealousy is a natural human emotion. It's not the problem, it's what you do with it. The same as anger. I teach all of my clients, anger isn't a problem, aggression is. Anger is healthy and good. If you become aggressive around it, that's the problem. And we should be teaching children this stuff anyway. So all of it really matters. It's about finding someone who suits. But there aren't many people who know a lot of all of these things. And I think it's really important that people like me differentiate between their clinical knowledge, around their life experience, and around their qualifications. Because, again, lots of people stand up to talk to you, and they've got a lot of experience, and that's fucking valuable. I am not belittling experience. It's taught me a lot of what I know about me and others. However, can I back it up clinically? Can I tell you what to read? Can I research it? That's got to matter as well.
I think one of the struggles as well is I feel I would be comfortable taking risks of being like, oh, okay, let's find out if it was my body I was risking. To risk someone else's body in order to...
So if you're worried about risk, everything we do has a danger with it. No, but you could both end up in jail, and you can both end up, or one of you, in a morgue or in a hospital. That is always a risk. What you've got to be aware of, and what I would tell you to do, and I would work with you on, is you've got to be aware of your own risk profile. What is your risk profile? What does that look like, and how does that work? And what's your risk profile about, not just physically, but emotionally, socially, everything else as well? Because you have something awful happen, it gets into the papers, everybody knows. You have something awful happen, somebody gets hurt. Maybe not everybody knows, but some people know. We get called paedophiles a lot, by the way. Social media, different things. I had a play party a few years ago at one of my daughter's businesses, which was a soft play. The Sun got hold of it. The Sun newspaper. I can't tell you the stuff that was said by so many people about they're only in there, they probably wanked over all the children, they did this, they did that. That group of people who were at that party, I did it twice, were the most respectful, kind people you could ever meet. They tied it up after themselves. They left less fluids than the children did. Have you met toddlers? Fuck me, those things will shit and piss and snot everywhere. And even the cafe front had a lovely little monster on that I'd had and made and all put up. No, it was picked off 3 times by children who were supposedly watched by their parents, let alone the beautiful sensory room I put together that was destroyed because we don't watch our kids properly. But these people might have been littles. They've also got respect and care, and they listen to everything in every way. So they were really lovely. And I found it really sad because the majority of people talking, okay, it was the Sun newspaper, were just saying, group of paedophiles, really dangerous, perverts, stay away. And it ruined the business. My daughter and her 3 partners at the time, all who consented, didn't realise what they were consenting to, not really. Even though I'd gone through it again and again and again, we don't listen. And I told them exactly where I was advertising it and what was happening. And they were sold out both times. It was crazy popular. Ruined their business. They sold it to a friend of theirs who's taken it on, and it's still spoken about now, 3 years later. 3 years later that, oh, you don't let any of those perverts and paedophiles in, do you? So we have to be careful about the social connotations of what we do and who we tell. I'm out, right? I couldn't be any more out. I'm out. I tell everybody, I am out. I've been outed about 5 times, even on Facebook. It still happens. It's still really shocking. So you've got to be aware of risk isn't just about pushing. physically, it's about what I can handle emotionally, what you can. It's Betty Martin's wheel of consent, really. It's a four-way process, it's not a two-way. What am I willing to do? What are you willing to let me do? And it goes, it's so much more than that, and it all needs discussing. And doing your own risk profile is a really fucking good idea, but it's a lot of personal work. But look up risk profile and see what you can do around it. But add in emotional, social, physical, and even financial. Add all those things in and have a look. Right, we're at the end. Thank you very much for your time.